Hi, welcome to CoinUp's Facebook Live series. I'm Leena Patidar from CoinUp. As we continue conversations around how the pandemic is affecting our nonprofits, we are compelled to speak about human trafficking and slavery, especially as it relates to our shopping habits, how and where we shop, as well as the products that we buy. To those of you who may be new to our virtual events, we are CoinUp, a mobile donation app that allows you to round up and donate to a cause that you care about. To learn more about CoinUp, here's a quick video to show how you can make an impact with us. Dressember Foundation is one of our newest nonprofit partners to join CoinUp. Their mission is to end human trafficking and slavery around the world. We are so impressed by this lean team and the impact they are making as they continue to fight the injustice. Today, we welcome the Director of Strategic Partnerships from Dressember, Marissa Peden. Hi, Marissa.
Hi, Leena. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for being here today. This is going to be a great conversation. I'm really excited, especially as how we can educate consumers about how they can make a little change every day by some of the things you're going to tell us about. And viewers, we hope you're going to join us today by adding your comments and questions to the chat box on your screen. So Marissa, do you want to just give us a quick overview about Dressember and the mission of Dressember?
Sure, yeah. So Dressember is, we're most well known for our style challenge in the month of December, where we invite people around the world in any walk of life to join us in wearing a dress or a tie for the month of December to raise awareness and fundraise for anti-trafficking programs around the world. So I say just, but 2020 has been flying by. So this last December, we wrapped up our 7th campaign year, and we've cumulatively raised over $10 million now to fund anti-trafficking work around the world. So how we raise this money is we are completely crowdfunded. People that join us in the month of December that are fundraising create a page on our website, which we'll chat a little bit about later. And really, the power is in everyday advocacy with Dressember and just inviting people to use their voice and equipping them with resources to fight what we see as one of the greatest injustices of our time, human trafficking. So it's really inspiring to see so many people get involved, so many people passionate about this. We've had about over 30,000 people participate in Dressember's Style Challenge in December.
That's fantastic, Marissa. So what inspired you to join Dressember?
Yeah, I think like a lot of people, when you find out about human trafficking, I found out when I was actually doing my undergrad and it just struck a chord in me. And now that I've talked to thousands of people like that through Dressember, I think it's really common that when you find out about human trafficking, you want to do something about it and to kind of engage in the fight against human trafficking. There's really straightforward paths to being like a social worker or a caseworker, a lawyer, a doctor even, and just none of those were really my calling. And that resonates a lot with Dressember's founder and so many people that participate in Dressember is what can I do about this? Like, how can I use what I have to fight human trafficking? So I had went and I did my master's in human rights and studied gender-based violence broadly as a result of conflict and terrorism, more specifically human trafficking and forced marriage. When I wrapped that up in my dissertation, I was kind of a little bit lost in finding, my path and knew I wanted to work in anti-trafficking, but not knowing what I wanted to do. And then I found out about Dressember and I met the founder and was like, I can do this. Like I have a nonprofit background and like I can do this role and inspire other women and men around the world to engage despite having, not the qualifications that you would normally need to engage in the fight against human trafficking.
Right. I actually had no idea how large the sector was and, the scale of human trafficking that exists in the world. What do you think it's going to take to really, truly create an intervention for human trafficking? And can you tell us a little bit about the scale that that Dressember has mentioned before?
Yeah, so when we talk about human trafficking, the definition is basically the use of force, fraud, or coercion to obtain either labor or a commercial sex act. So a lot of people, I think, have this vision of human trafficking, in like chains and bondage, and that's really not what it looks like. It's more of like an emotional coercion. Victims often look normal. We even like interact with them in our community and don't even know it half of the time. And a lot of people will say, like, what keeps them from leaving the situation? Like any abusive situation, it's a lot of emotional coercion, as I mentioned, and their trauma and their fear is what's keeping them from seeking help. And as I said, like few of us are kind of equipped to deal with the scale of this problem. And there's all kinds of estimates on how many victims of human trafficking there are currently in the world, but it's really difficult to pull data and put a number on it because it's so underreported, and it's hard to identify. It's a very hidden crime, but it's a very profitable organized crime situation. So it's estimated that there's anywhere from like 20 to 50 million victims in the world right now. It's also estimated that it's like $150 billion industry. And, like that is the motive for traffickers, the profit. So to combat it, it's really going to take like a holistic approach, right? So you need governments involved, law enforcement, nonprofits. And lastly, I think the sector that is getting more involved is actually the private sector, because traffickers are using, it's right in front of our faces as like bankers or hotel workers or flight attendants. Victims have to be transported. So a lot of airlines are like having their crew take human trafficking awareness like programs and trainings. We work with a partner that does hotel trainings for their staff to identify it. So I think to combat it, first we have to know it exists, and that's where Dressember kind of comes in, is this like awareness piece, just building awareness. You have to be able to identify it, right? You have to know the signs, what to look for, and the people on the front lines really need to know the signs to be able to report it. So I think really what it's going to take is we need to crack the business of human trafficking, and to do that, the business sector needs to get involved, as well as like I said, like more law enforcement, more reporting. As I said, it's very underrepresented, and just everyone taking kind of effective measures to reduce the potential for exploitation in each of our own systems.
In terms of the private sector, what do you think there can be done over there? I mean, is it training to identify what's happening, or what would it really take from the private sector to be able to identify and then, hopefully combat?
Yeah, definitely trainings. When you train your staff on what to look for, they know, the crime and they can report it, and then they know where to report it. Like, it's not something that is like an urgent 911 call, but there's like a human trafficking hotline, and there's like different ways of reporting it. So I think definitely like doing trainings on identification and then like next steps is really important as well. Yeah.
That's great. So how does Dressember partner with various organizations around the world? And who are some of the organizations that you partner with?
Yeah, so when I talk about that, like $10 million we've raised, which is a big chunk of change, like that makes a lot of impact. So that's in about 7 years, and we focus in 3 areas. So we focus on prevention, which is really important because, it's kind of like cutting it off before it gets to that point. So certain groups are more vulnerable to becoming victims of trafficking. And one of them specifically in California is foster youth. So one of our prevention programs educates foster youth on again, like a training and risks and identifying trafficking. Also within prevention, like I said, are all of those trainings with our partner that does hotel trainings, hotel or hospitality industry trainings, as well as we launched a partnership with Lyft earlier this year to train their drivers to spot trafficking in Florida around the Super Bowl. Any kind of like big tourist destination is going to be more prone to trafficking because there's a demand for it. So we have the prevention piece and then the actual intervention piece, which a lot of people, I think, when they think about anti-trafficking programs, they think intervention, they think rescue, like, going in like guns blazing, like, which isn't normally how it looks, but that's like empowering, law enforcement and organizations to actually conduct rescues, which are very costly. So our intervention partners, primarily International Justice Mission, which is the world's largest anti-trafficking organization. So we work with them in India and South Asia, and primarily, like I said, on rescues. They're working with Border Patrol, and we've also worked with Thorn in the past, who is another intervention partner of ours that developed a tool to spot like online cyber child sex trafficking. So basically, a lot of child cyber sex trafficking is done online. It's done on the web. And at one point it was Craigslist, and then it was Backpage, and that got taken down, and now it's coming back up. But basically this tool scans the web for these ads for children, and then sends them to law enforcement to take next steps. So that's prevention, intervention, and then lastly is our protection programs. So this is for survivors that are, on their restoration journey from being trafficked, and making sure that they don't get back into trafficking. So just providing support services, job training, case management, and that, unfortunately, with COVID is where we're seeing a lot of kind of like fallback is survivors that are losing their job in the US, specifically as a result of COVID. We work with one partner specifically in New York City that works with survivors, and about 80% of their survivors have lost their job as a result of COVID and experience maybe one of three vulnerabilities of immigration. So they don't have access to like government services as we do, or they're a single mom. So they're just incredibly vulnerable to getting back into a trafficking situation. So just really trying to support them. We launched a COVID campaign earlier this year in March to just provide like emergency relief support for them. And yeah, like our protection programs, as I said, are there to provide that really necessary final step, because, and it does take all three, right? Prevention, intervention, and protection to end this. Like, right. Not one program is going to combat human trafficking. And that's like why at Dressember we have 15 partners doing totally different kinds of work, all kind of toward the same goal. They're geographically spread out in the US, internationally. Some work with children, some work with adults, because I think I might have mentioned this earlier, trafficking does not discriminate. It is not exempt from any community. It's happening here, it's happening abroad, it's happening to children, it's happening to adults. So yeah, our approach is just to take the most like holistic and sustainable approach, and making sure that our funds that are raised by our community are like being maximized and put to the best use.
That's amazing. You touched on so many things. First of all, it's an alarming rate. 80% have lost their jobs in just New York, and that they're more vulnerable. I mean, I really hope we can build some awareness, and thank you to Dressember for all the awareness that you're creating, intervention programs you're creating, and the training. That's huge, especially right now, and especially as we hear everyone's kind of locked down. So people who are vulnerable, or people who are already kind of in terrible situations, are not really able to find ways to escape where they're at. So I also love the fact that you worked with Lyft and other partners to just allow people to understand what the signals are to look for, if nothing else, and then create that intervention, call the hotlines. You mentioned race, and so I wanted to bring up the topic of any correlation that there might be between race and and human trafficking, as well as, what are the differences between some of these ethnicities and how they're trafficked?
Yeah, I know I did mention like human trafficking doesn't discriminate. The notion that anyone can be trafficked is absolutely true. However, people of color are disproportionately affected by human trafficking. And when we look at human trafficking, we really are looking at a racial justice issue. Racism and oppression are deeply embedded in trafficking. So when you look at it and you're looking at how to solve this, giant nuanced issue, you really have to look at the root factors that push people of color into the commercial sex trade, especially in the US. It definitely affects women and children predominantly. There's, again, all kinds of statistics, but in the US, the most recent one that I came across was that 94% are female and 77% are non-white. So it's affecting minorities incredibly. In Europe, which we often think is going to be white victims of human trafficking, it's not. It's primarily like the Roma ethnic groups. And when you look at the justice system too, and you look at, human trafficking is often confused with prostitution, and especially from a legal standpoint, victims are often arrested on prostitution charges. And if you look at prostitution charges in the US, about 40% of the arrests are Black women. So that's more than any other racial group. And I think, people of color are identified as criminals, and biases do cloud the ability to recognize consent. Again, when we talk about prostitution, a prostitute consents to this type of work, and a trafficking victim does not. And like we've seen with these statistics, people of color are definitely being arrested more on prostitution charges. They're also less likely to seek help from law enforcement, whether they're, worried about their immigration status, as I mentioned earlier, or even stigmas that have been associated with them. There is a visa specifically for human trafficking victims. It's a T visa, and in the last year, the U.S. has granted the least amount since 2010. That's not a result of them being not reported. I think there's definitely like a hold on all immigrant visas right now, but that's something we need to take into consideration, is that victims of human trafficking aren't getting their visas and don't have the right to work. And that visa is dependent on them also working with law enforcement and cooperating to bring down trafficking networks, which is absolutely crucial. So yeah, human trafficking is definitely a racial justice issue. When we're looking at like how to combat it, we need to take a very like systemic and institutionalized racism approach and figure out like, I think we need to do so we talk about this a lot at Dressember, with ethical practices and a lot of humility, and knowing that this is something that is embedded in our society. And Dressember is actually, we've focused on it a bit in the past. In light of everything going on, we are doing another series in July specifically on race and human trafficking. So it's a great place to tune in if you want to learn more. We use our blog and our platform to shed light on issues like this, because it definitely is it's a little bit of a hidden issue within human trafficking, is that it is a racial issue that is a result of years and years of oppression.
Yeah, oppression, and I think there has to be levels of education, even for the young women in all these countries, to let them know, when they're being trafficked. I think sometimes they don't even realize that they're kind of falling into the traps. Mm-hmm. So to really keep them educated. Wow, it's amazing, and really, again, staggering around the world and in the U.S. that this can be happening, especially for that, the dollars. I mean, yeah, I always want to think about, what is the crux of it, and where can that intervention happen. So I'm really glad you talked a little bit about that, and some of the things that are happening there. So I want to switch gears a little bit and talk a little bit about how we as consumers can be more conscious about how we shop and where we shop. because I know a lot of it is based on, fair trade and, making sure we buy products that are ethical. So could you talk a little bit about that and how we as consumers can learn about which products are ethical and where we can shop for these?
Yeah, so this is like Dressember's bread and butter. Like we are best known for our style challenge. So it's really important for us to integrate fashion into what we do. We're telling people to wear a dress or tie in December. So we need to make sure that they're doing so ethically. The fashion industry, especially fast fashion, is one of the largest contributors to labor trafficking in the US and internationally. So in the US, here in LA, it's a big trafficking destination for so many reasons, for, being close to an international border. But one of them also is because of our fashion district in downtown LA. So there's, people think like, okay, if things are made in LA, then they must be fine. Like we have, certain standards and practices in place, and that's not the case at all. And same with globally and internationally as well. Like so many of the things that we buy and the clothes that we wear are made in China and Bangladesh by children that are being exploited and trafficked. And it's such a long journey, I will say, to getting to a place of being a conscious consumer. And that's what I always tell people is, you can't make all these changes overnight, but a great place to start is just like starting to, and I think because we're all home, it's a good time to consume information, is starting to really think like, okay, if I'm wearing this shirt and it's made in Bangladesh and it cost $10 and I got it at Forever 21 or H&M or a fast fashion company that's putting out a lot of product, how is that possible? Like if you kind of do the math in your head and you think about the fabric and the person sewing it and it getting shipped from across the world, like it doesn't add up. So I think just starting to think like, just doing a little bit of math in your head and starting to pay a little more attention to where your products are coming from. And there's so many places you can start. Like I said, we talk about it all the time on our blog, books you can read, documentaries you can watch. And looking for certifications it kind of does the work for you. So like Fair Trade Certified, that ensures that Fair Trade Certified is really big in the food industry. So when you're buying chocolate, bananas, coffee, that ensures that, there's no trafficking going on in the supply chain anywhere, that those farmers are getting paid fairly. There's no children in the supply chain that are being exploited. So Fair Trade Certified is great. B Corps is another one, B corporations, that, these certifications take a lot of work and audits to get. So I trust a few of them. And we talk about those on our blog. We also have an ethical fashion directory. If you are interested in we have all kinds of things on there, but I will say most of the brands are female brands that work with artisans in Uganda or in India that are making beautiful handmade stuff. And shopping ethically does cost a bit more, but it's kind of moving in this direction of we don't need so much stuff. Let's just have less stuff, better quality, and making sure that we're supporting workers, garment workers, and farmers. And oftentimes, where there's labor trafficking, there's sex trafficking. When there's a bad factory, it's exploiting children, women. So I think it's just a lot of brands too. I always look for maybe they don't have a certification and that's okay, but they're transparent on their website, or if you message them and say I'm really interested in purchasing your products. Can you tell me a bit more about the supply chain? I always trust brands that are absolutely, here's a look into it, or they share that information publicly. It's the ones that can't, and I think some of the times they don't even know, because our clothes our clothes and everything go through so many stages to get here. This might, a shirt might be sewn ethically in a factory, but who picked that cotton? Was it a child that picked the cotton, or was it someone being paid?
Yeah, how would you know?
Yeah, or paid fairly, I mean. So
right.
like I said, it's just everything goes on such a journey to get to us. So yeah, I think just making a conscious effort to pay a little bit more attention to it is a great start.
Yeah, I really appreciated what you said about simplifying our lives. I think now more than ever, people are thinking about simplifying their life and how we can simplify, but also we have a little bit more time on our hands. So to be more thoughtful about how we shop and the products that we buy, taking that extra minute to understand, what it might take to, buy one water bottle versus another because, they're being made with, the right things for the environment or they're not being associated with labor trafficking.
Mm-hmm.
It just takes a little bit extra effort, but this is probably the best time that we can take, to take extra minute to shop. So I think that's really important. So I saved the best for last, and I wanted to learn more about Dressember and about your event at the end of the year, your annual event, and how Blythe Hill, the founder of Dressember, came up with the idea.
Yeah, sure. So let's see, what year are we in? 2020. So we became a 501c3 in 2013, but Blythe had been doing Dressember a few years before that. So she was in grad school at the time, and she's an English major, loves puns. I love to tell her story. She also has a TED Talk that lays it out really well, if anyone's interested.
Fantastic talk.
Yeah. So she started, wearing a dress every day in December, and people started joining her. And then each year for the first couple of years, it just grew and grew and grew really organically. And then she aligned with International Justice Mission, as I mentioned earlier, who's a really big anti-trafficking organization. Mm-hmm. And so the first campaign in 2013 was only to fundraise for them. And she basically approached them and said, okay, Dressember is going to raise $25,000 for you. And I think it was the first week of December, she hit that goal. And that first year ended up raising $165,000. And then year after year, it just grew and grew. And we started adding partners to make, more of a local as well as an international impact. And, Blythe is very humble about what she started, but it is incredible how it went from, just like her doing it by herself to her friends, to people she didn't know, to people like around the world. We have, we call our fundraisers Dressember advocates, and we have advocates in like about 50 countries now. Oh, wow. On every continent other than Antarctica. So it's a really, broad spread out thing. And I think that's the power of social media. How it can do really, really good things is we've just empowered tens of thousands of people to engage in this that normally probably either wouldn't engage or don't know about it, don't know how to get involved. So that's how it started. And then, fast forward to now, we have a lean team of 4 full-time staff and, like I said, an army of advocates behind us.
Yeah. I mean, you guys are an army yourselves, the way you've affected so much already. So how does one get involved in Dressember? What can all of us do to be a part of that amazing event?
Yeah, so our campaign is open year round. You can sign up on our website. It's just dressember.org, or if you want to go directly to fundraise, it's dressember.org/fundraise. You can start a page there. You can do like birthday fundraisers, or if you're hosting an event, like your page is there. And then December is the actual style challenge, where you commit to wearing a dress or a tie. And that's really when our advocates are like sharing so it's like a social media profile. So you share your URL. It's linked to Facebook, so you can fundraise on Facebook. You can do it via email. Some people don't even use social media at all. They're like just asking friends in person. So everyone fundraises a bit differently, but so the page is on our website. You start that, you add a photo, you add a blurb while you're participating. You wear a dress every day, and we have advocates that raise anything from, $50 all the way up to $20,000. So it just, you would be surprised how many people will support you in something that you're passionate about. So, and then that leads us up to January, which is National Human Trafficking Awareness Month in the US.
Yeah, it sounds like we have to have awareness all year long and make sure we're all looking out for our communities. Marissa, that was fantastic. Viewers, I hope you were able to learn a great deal about Dressember and the great work that they're doing. We invite you to coin up for Dressember by clicking on the link in the caption below. And Marissa, thank you so much, and your team, for all the work that you're doing and how you're changing the lives of so many younger women and men who are really caught up in this horrible, you know, industry. It's so sad, and we really appreciate the work that you're doing. We really want to support all your efforts, and we're happy you've joined us.
Thank you so much for having me, Leena. Loved this conversation.
For sure. Viewers, thank you for joining us this week. We hope our Facebook Live series are inspiring you to make change with CoinUp. Thank you so much, and we'll see you again soon.